Good evening and welcome to the local campaign, helping you make a more informed choice during the October 19th federal election. My name is Eric Drozd. I will be your moderator for this evening's debate. Tonight we have the riding of Cambridge. Now this riding consists of a portion of the city of Cambridge lying south of the 401, as well as the township of North Dumfries and a portion of the northern limits of Brant County. And the candidates vying to represent Cambridge are, in order, at random draw prior to this evening's debate. Gary Goodyear with the Conservative Party. Bryan May is here with the Liberal Party. Manuel Cueto is here with the Marxist Leninist Party. Bobbi Stewart with the NDP. Lee Sperduti is here, Independent, and Michele Brantiff is here with the Green Party. Now, before we begin tonight's debate, just a few rules on the debate. Questions will be provided to us by you, the viewer, and by our in-studio panelists. Let's meet them now. Greg DeRocher is here with the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and Arlene Dowell is here as well, 570 News anchor reporter. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. If you wish to submit a question tonight to our candidates, you can do so by emailing us, thelocalcampaign@rogers.com, or you can tweet in questions as well at RogersTVCable20. Make sure you're using the hashtag #localcampaign. Candidates will be given 1 minute for responses to questions. They will also be allowed 30 seconds for rebuttal if they are named in another candidate's response. Our candidates, as I mentioned, the speaking order was determined at random draw prior to this evening's debate. So let us now begin with the opening statements portion of tonight's debate, and we'll begin with Gary Goodyear. Gary?
Thank you. At first, I want to thank all of you for the confidence you placed in me 4 years ago. Since then, I have been able to secure many amazing things, including tens of millions of dollars for the Institute of Food Technology at Conestoga College, simply because the manufacturing sector and the students needed it. Millions of dollars to repair arenas and for the YMCA Immigration Services. Other not-for-profit agencies, including Lang's and Argus Residence and the Alan Reuter Center. In fact, millions of dollars for youth training, support for seniors, not to mention over 100 separate business projects to create jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the most reputable and respected country in the world right now. International rating agencies puts us at first and second place. We have the strongest job growth in the G7. Our middle class incomes are growing faster than anybody else's.
And thank you. Thank you, Gary. Bryan.
Hi, my name is Bryan May, and I'm your federal Liberal candidate. As a husband and father, I've seen our country going in the wrong direction for far too long. In my time working for the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, the University of Waterloo, I've seen young children that are struggling. I've worked with students who can't find a job and are saddled with incredible debt. And I've seen families who just need a little bit of breathing room to get by. We clearly cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's what you're getting with the Conservative Party. There is a better option. The Liberal plan will help families who need it the most by lowering taxes, creating jobs, lifting 315,000 children out of poverty. I'm looking forward to answering your questions this evening about how the Liberal plan will help your families and help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryan. Manuel?
In this election, the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada is fielding 70 candidates, all working people and youth who fight for the empowerment of the people. We're calling for a new direction for the economy that holds public right, not monopoly right. We call for the renewal of the political process so that Canadians can directly decide the matters that concern them and affect their lives. We call for a modern constitution that eliminates all vestiges of privilege. We call for providing security by defending the rights of all. We call for repealing Bill C-51 and similar legislation that criminalizes dissent. And we call for establishing an anti-war government so that Canada is a factor for peace, not predatory war. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bobbi?
Good evening. When I meet people at the door, I hear one clear, resounding message. People are not happy with the current Conservative government and believe it's time for change. I remind voters that the Liberals have often voted with the Conservatives and are still a corporate party. Unlike Tom Mulcair and the NDP, the Liberals would not consider raising corporate taxes or cutting down on tax loopholes. Within the first 100 days, Tom Mulcair will get to work on the climate change bill to be prepared for the Paris summit in December. He will ensure that Canada is ready for the arrival of 10,000 Syrian refugees, and he will call for an inquiry into the missing and murdered Aboriginal girls and women. I am a retired social services worker, most recently handling clinical social work for youth in foster care. I raised 3 daughters as a single parent, and I'm proud of my family and my accomplishments, but I want to do more. It's time to elect an NDP government. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobbi. Lee.
Thank you. My name is Lee Sperduti, and I'm here today to share with you my vision. As a blue-collar worker residing in this great community, I feel that I have a good grasp on the issues that are important to the people of Cambridge. I believe there are portions of each party's platform that will work well for all Canadians. Whether in a majority or minority government situation, an independent MP does not have to follow specific party lines. In fact, I'll have the ability to work with any party that puts forth policies that will best serve the people of Cambridge. It's time to put partisan politics aside and get to work for all Canadians. In a minority government, an independent will have the power to negotiate great gains for this community, as my vote could be the one and only vote needed to pass any legislation. If elected and given the opportunity, I will happily partner with any party to get to work for you. Together, we will make Canada great again. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. And Michele.
Hi, I'm Michele Brantiff, and I'm delighted to be running for the Green Party. I've been voting this way for 20 years because it lines up with my values. Canada, for many years, has been a beacon of peace and freedom and stability, and we're slipping away from that. I've worked as a lawyer, seeking social justice, collaboration as a mediator, and most recently I'm involved in mental health, and I'm an artist. And I've decided I need to go upstream where the decisions are made, to go to Ottawa on behalf of the people of Cambridge to speak out. And the Green Vision is one that has got like a 3-legged stool. It's very solid. Bold action on climate, 40% reduction of greenhouse gases from the 205 levels by 2025, a sustainable economy, and strong communities. And we need to do this with democratic reform, good government. The Green Party says it's first, the constituents. Second question, is it good for Canada?
Thank you, Michele. Candidates, thank you for your opening statements tonight. We'll jump right into the first question. We'll go over to our in-studio panelists. Here's Arlene Dowell with 570 News. Arlene.
Thanks, Eric. Lots of press and promises lately regarding how Canada should and will help aid in the Syrian refugee crisis. What is your plan to make this riding part of the solution to the refugee crisis, not the region or the country, just specifically this riding? And would you host a Syrian refugee in your home?
Thank you, Arlene, for that question. First to answer is Bryan. Bryan.
Thank you for the question. Canada once welcomed refugees openly, but that proud history has faded after a decade of mismanagement under Stephen Harper. We will renew and expand our commitments to help resettle more refugees and deliver a refugee program that is safe, secure, and humane. We will expand Canada's intake of refugees from Syria by 25,000 through immediate government sponsorship. We will also work with private sponsors to accept even more. To do this, we will invest $250 million, including $100 million this fiscal year. Frankly, we currently are on the wrong side of history, and Canada has never gone wrong when it does what's right.
Thank you, Bryan. Manuel?
Well, Canada is one of the parties responsible for the problem and the violence in the Middle East. And the best help that can be provided for the refugees, besides bringing them in, is for Canada to stop its aid and its participation in the aggression in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobbi.
Yes, NDP's plan would be to bring 10,000 refugees into this country by the end of the year. That translates to about 24 Syrian refugees per riding. When you look at it, it's not that enormous. You asked the question in terms of how would we handle this locally. Well, certainly there would be a lot of coordinating to do. There'd be some direction coming from the central government, but certainly I would be connecting with the local agencies, the settlement services, the food bank, counseling services, churches, other neighborhood association groups. We have a wonderful network in Cambridge of neighborhood groups. And we would be working with them to coordinate. And would I have a Syrian refugee family in my home? Certainly, if I had room, I would. I would certainly take, you know, 1 or 2 people if I could. Obviously, I would need to consult with my husband about that. But I would certainly be very open to that.
Bobbi, thank you. Lee?
For people who flee war and persecution, leaving their home is about life or death. And a short answer to your question, I would absolutely allow somebody to come into my home who's willing to come and allow us to actually help them. There's no doubt that we have to do something to help these people. And there's lots of aid available for these people. So locally, there's many NGOs that are able to help these people by issuing money and helping them with food. There's lots of charitable dollars available. I guess the best thing to do would be able to have a plan in place to ensure that these people are able to come here, that we're able to clothe them, that we're able to feed them, and we're actually able to educate them so they can become part of our society through work and through other ways to make sure that they can actually prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Michele?
There are lots of people in this community right now doing as much as they can. There's families who want to reunify. There are church groups that are getting themselves organized. I only have 600 square feet. My family don't stay in my little condo when they visit, but I invite people for meals, and sometimes that kind of welcome is what we want. I grew up at a time when Canada reached out and welcomed the boat people from Vietnam, and that was a good time, and I think not just a good time for the refugees who came to Canada for a safe place, but a good for Canada. We got some wonderful citizens. What we need to do is politically, there's a backlog right now. It appears to be in the Prime Minister's office. There's a recent Globe and Mail story about that, and lots of questions in my mind, and maybe that'll be answered. But what we need to do is get rid of the barriers and straighten out the bureaucracy so that the people who can come.
Thank you, Michele. And Gary?
Ladies and gentlemen, we already have a very generous refugee system, and we look at this approach as needing to be sped up a little bit and do a little bit more, of course, but we see it as a three-pronged effort on our part. One is the cause of the refugee problem, and that is exactly why we are over there trying to get the homeland back. Secondly, humanitarian aid. And our aid in Canada is approaching $1 billion, which is some of the most generous of any country in the world. And third, of course, is refugee settlement. The Prime Minister has been on this for quite some time, long before the media. We have agreed to speed things up, but the fact is that we cannot risk the security of our nation, so we will do everything we can, speed up the process, but not put Canadians at risk as these others would.
Thank you, Gary. We'll move on to our next question. We'll go to in-studio panelist Greg DeRocher with the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Greg.
Thank you, Eric. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, the largest trade accord ever created, 40% of the world's GDP, and an economy of $28 trillion. To be clear and straightforward, the Chamber of Commerce wildly supports this agreement with enthusiasm. Like the North American Free Trade Agreement, we know that this will also contribute greatly to the Canadian economy. I was just in BC because I'm one of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce resource champions. The event was the Gateway to Asia tour, where BC port authorities come in. TPP was a topic of every discussion, and they are waiting with bated breath for successful conclusion to those talks. Vital to our resource economy. So that is them, and we know it will be good for Canada overall from the Chamber's perspective. What about Cambridge, our hometown? First, how do you feel it will affect business and jobs here, and will you support the ratification of TPP?
Greg, thank you for the question on the TPP. Manuel, over to you.
We don't support the ratification of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We stand for trade on equal and mutually beneficial basis. These treaties, such as Trans-Pacific, such as NAFTA, they compromise the sovereignty of Canada. More than compromise it, they take it right with them. The sovereignty of Canada and the control over its economy.
Thank you very much. Bobbi.
I'm not against trade, nor is my party, but I am very concerned about this Trans-Pacific Partnership. Issues of sovereignty, issues of the dairy farmers, issues of car parts. The problem is, for example, we expect that there will be more foreign car parts with our cars, and that's not helpful. With dairy farmers, we've got a concern about milk. We've got issues around different standards, and we need to look at how we're going to manage all of that. We have people like Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump on the other side of the spectrum, all opposing the deal. We don't have details. I'm told that the details are sealed and that we can't see them for 4 years. So how can we support a trade deal for which we can't have full and transparent inspection?
Thank you, Bobbi. Lee.
So I think the biggest issue here is that we actually haven't seen the full TPP in writing. I believe there's some good things from what I've read in the TPP, things such as protections for proprietary technologies and research. This essentially extends patent and copyright through the TPP, and this is great for large and small businesses. However, I believe that there's some issues concerning auto manufacturing, things like dropping the content rules from North America and eliminating tariffs on imports are things that are very concerning to me. Some economists are saying that we'll lose up to 20,000 jobs in the automotive industry, and that is not acceptable. The one thing that I really would like to point out is that the government is going to give $100 million over 10 years to the auto industry to compensate. I just don't think that even comes close to what has to be done to actually put investment in these jobs and make sure these jobs are going to be here tomorrow. I put this to Mr. Goodyear. Your government offered Volkswagen $540 million to help them build a new plant in Mexico. Why are we not investing here for the growth of our jobs?
Thank you, Lee. Do we want to get through the questions first and allow for rebuttal? No? Okay, we're going to do a rebuttal first. 30 seconds to you. Gary?
The government has put millions of dollars into our automotive sector. There's a $500 million automotive innovation fund, and there is a new fund for automotive innovation parts. So there is a lot of money going into the automotive sector here in Ontario. It's an integrated sector across North America. Thank goodness we're in this deal, because the United States is in it, and without Canada, that would cost hundreds of thousands of jobs.
All right, Gary, thank you. We'll go back to Michele now. 60 seconds to you, Michele.
I practiced law for 15 years, and a basic tenet of getting into a deal is you have to read a contract before you sign it. You have to know what's going on. So I'm troubled by the non-transparent nature of the negotiations. To me, it doesn't seem democratic, and I'm particularly troubled by the investor state provisions. So this is a clause that allows the foreign corporations to launch a suit, and it's to an arbitrator, not even in our court system, in private arbitration, if government decisions, laws change, government decisions undermine profit. This is something Canadian corporations cannot do. Why would we give foreign corporations the right to go to arbitration when Canadian corporations don't do that? It seems very strange to hand the advantage over to the foreign corporations. And I'm also agreeing with some of the other people who pointed out that this isn't good for the supply managed sectors like dairy and agriculture.
Thank you, Michele. We'll go to Gary now. Gary.
Thank you. This deal will be before the next Parliament, where hopefully all the MPs will read it before they decide not to vote against it. We've already put in place programs to help businesses upgrade and modernize their equipment to become more competitive for this marketplace. We have programs to help train existing employees and new employees on those new technologies. Local industries was the questions, and the sectors that will benefit from this deal include aerospace. You're kidding.
Was that 60 seconds?
Oh, sorry.
You get 30 more seconds. Go ahead.
Aerospace, information communication technology, high-tech service, eggs, beef, veal, pork, feedstock, auto parts, all manufacturers our trucking industry, all food processing, Conestoga College, and any small business with a vision.
Thank you, Gary. And finally, Bryan.
Thank you. The Liberal Party clearly believes that trade is essential for this country. And the Conservative candidate here clearly has more details than the rest of the panel up here for him to be able to give that last answer. Without those details, it would be frankly irresponsible for me to say whether I would approve of this deal or not. The secrecy of this government that this government has created around this has, of course, created a number of rumors and speculation, not the least of which has already been mentioned, the 20,000 lost auto workers' jobs, the impact to dairy. How good could this deal be if, in fact, you would have to compensate dairy by $4.35 billion? To me, that just does not sound like it's a good deal for this country. Again, we are going to have to wait and see.
Thank you, Bryan. Candidates, will move on to our next question. This question coming via Twitter, so I'll direct your attention to the big screen right there. It is from Mel, who asks, where do you and your party stand on poverty, especially for those without children? And thank you, Mel, for that question. First to answer is Bobbi.
Great question. I hate poverty. We have many, many people in poverty in our own community. I'm told by food bank staff that 827 families visit there every month. There are families, there are single people, there are young people, and there's a real rise in the usage for the bank. So what we are doing to help is increase the federal minimum wage. We are also increasing the guaranteed income supplement for seniors. We have a plan to provide 40,000 jobs for youth. This includes paid internships and apprenticeship jobs. We will continue to work with all of our local agencies to support them. We are also instilling a job creation tax innovation credit of 2 points to increase innovation and create jobs in small to medium business.
Thank you, Bobbi. Lee?
So one of the things that I would look at with regards to poverty is housing and homelessness, obviously. Canada is currently the only G8 country without a national housing strategy, and a majority of municipalities are already on board and calling on the federal government for a long-term strategy. The majority of the parties have presented some really good ideas on this, and I think that this should be a nonpartisan issue, and we should really move forward and actually implement some of these ideas. Some of the framework that we should look at: encourage and increase a private, cooperative, and non-profit housing to be built. Ensure home ownership is attainable for future generations by perhaps allowing for smaller apartments to be built so they're more affordable. And make new investment in social housing, and also to create a fund for community outreach programs. Homelessness should not be a problem that is managed. It should be an issue that is addressed at the root cause. There's places like Finland that already have these programs in place that have been very successful with 50% reductions in homelessness, and I think this is something that we can do. Thank you, Lee. Michele?
Absolutely, a national housing policy is something that the Green Party supports, and also steps with respect to poverty. A guaranteed income is something that the Green Party has suggested, and that would involve collaboration across the levels of government. The idea with the guaranteed income would be we take all of the income supplements we have at provincial and municipal level and replace them with one guaranteed income of a certain amount of money. And this is something that would help seniors, it would help youth, it would help artists, it would help people with disabilities. And the National Pharmacare is a way of addressing health care, because poverty is not just about the way of life. Poverty actually has an income on people's health and their expected life expectancy. So we need to address this issue. And another factor is to look at a more fulsome way of measuring welfare in Canada, not the gross national product, but actually a well-being measure.
Thank you, Michele. Gary?
I think the best approach to this very complex issue is a good paying job and lower taxes so people have more money in their pockets. That's why we have a low tax plan for job creation and economic growth. In fact, we've created 1.3 million jobs since the recession, and a promise to create 1.3 million more over the next 4 years. Now, during the recession, our policies have pulled roughly 180,000 children out of poverty. And since 2006, the number of Canadians living below the low-income cutoff is at its lowest point ever. Now, there is still work to do, absolutely. But I think our efforts in this regard, and certainly my efforts on places like Lang's, Argus House for young people, the Y, and so on, and many not-for-profits, is a good start to build on.
Thank you, Gary. Bryan.
Thank you so much for this question. With my experience working with the Social Planning Council for Cambridge and North Dumfries, I've seen firsthand the impacts of poverty in this community. We had the pleasure of having Member of Parliament Adam Vaughan in our community not so long ago, consulting with a number of folks throughout the region, speaking specifically about affordable housing. Affordable housing is not a problem. It is a solution, and it's a solution for so many different issues, including poverty. The winding down of the CMHC affordable housing commitment that this government has been undertaking is frankly the wrong choice for those that truly need that support. Liberals commit to undoing this damage caused by the Harper government that has allowed co-op programs in Canada to be threatened. Currently, there are 1,200 people waiting for affordable housing. 39% of those are over the age of 50.
Bryan, thank you. And we'll go to Manuel.
This is really in the field of human rights. It's a human right to have food, housing, healthcare, education, and it's the duty of the state to fulfill these rights. We call for increase in funding for social programs and an immediate end to paying the rich. So the money which is now used to pay the rich should go to social programs to address these problems.
Thank you, Manuel. And I'll just like to remind everybody watching at home tonight that you can still email in your questions. Do that at the local campaign at Rogers.com. Tweet in your questions at Rogers TV Cable 20. Use the hashtag local campaign. On to our next question. We go to Arlene Dowell, in-studio panelist. Arlene with 570 News.
There is so much focus from all levels of government on the region's growing and very successful tech sector. How would you bring Cambridge's manufacturing sector into the same type of spotlight and ensure its continued growth?
Arlene, thank you for that question. We'll begin with Lee.
So the biggest thing for the manufacturing sector is it's obviously we've been losing a lot of jobs to Mexico. What we really have to do is invest in infrastructure here to make sure that the corporations can come in here and at the lowest possible cost build a factory and make sure that they are going to be profitable when they come. Another thing that we can do is entice manufacturers to come to our region through some of the programs that we set up through our education, through some of our schools and our universities. These things are very important. Putting together a grant program to actually allow these corporations to come here is also something that is also important I would like to see. We see Mexico spending billions of dollars a year in enticing automotive investment, and I really do think that we need to do the same thing to make sure that we can compete with the countries like Mexico.
Thank you, Lee. Michelle?
The question of settling and bringing businesses to the community has been addressed by research on economic development, and they say that businesses like to come in places where their employees want to work. So this is an example of how the integrated policy of the Green Party would work really well, because if you look after the people, you've got the childcare in place, arts and culture, arts, the symphony, I heard somebody talking about the opera and visual arts. These are things that make a place wonderful to live in. And in addition, the Green Party is in support of a green economy that's good for the environment and good for business. Some examples would be business clusters and support for local green startups, green venture capital funding programs, reducing paperwork burden on small business. A lot of times the economic growth comes from small business. It's the driver.
Thank you, Michelle. Gary?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have brought programs and funding for over 100 different business projects in the Cambridge area for such things as the Conestoga College Smart Manufacturing Institute, the Institute of Food Technology, Jumpstart, which is a program to help brand new businesses start up and create jobs. And ladies and gentlemen, a quote from the Canadian manufacturers and exporters is simply this: Gary Goodyear has been instrumental in reaching out to the sector, listening to our ideas and turning those ideas into effective government policies and programs that have had a significantly positive impact on the manufacturing sector in Southern Ontario. We have the programs to help start businesses and help businesses grow in all sectors, but in particular the high-tech sector, which has a great reputation in this area.
Thank you, Gary. Bryan.
We know that the Conservatives have put all of their economic eggs in the tar sands basket at the cost of manufacturing in this province. We have seen that since the economic downturn. We have not seen that return. We know that companies are continuing to leave this region with no checks or balances. The Liberal Party has a plan. The Liberal Party's manufacturing plan, I'm very proud to say, was actually developed right here in this community of Cambridge. Part of this plan, of course, is looking at infrastructure needs. The historic $125 billion infrastructure investments that we want to make are focused, unlike the Economic Action Plan, have a clear focus, including social infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, and green energy infrastructure. We need to focus on manufacturing. We need to bring jobs back to Cambridge.
Thank you, Bryan and Manuel.
Without sovereign control over the economy, it's not possible to have manufacturing and to have the kind of development that is being asked for. To pay the rich as an excuse that they will come and bring jobs is not a solution. To have a plant that is the most efficient as well is not a solution, because Caterpillar, for example, did not happen too long ago. We used to have a steel-making industry, and that's gone. So in order to be able to develop Canada, to promote industry, and to solve the economic problems of Canada, it's imperative to have sovereign control over the economy.
Thank you very much. Bobbi.
Hi. It would be very important to work with all levels of government on this. I would work directly with the Chamber of Commerce and with groups in the community. We, NDP, will be putting $1.3 billion into the local infrastructure through taking 1 cent from the gas tax that will go directly to the municipalities. It'll go quickly. We will also put that money into our Better Transit program. We will also, of course, provide $15 a day childcare, which will encourage and facilitate more women in the workplace and make their lives easier and enrich the lives of our children. We need to work at strengthening our unions. I appreciate what Michele said about the importance of a happy workplace. So we need to strengthen our unions. We need to work with our education partners. And we need to listen to CBC and get funding back and watch This Is That every day at 11 o'clock.
Thank you, Bobbi. We'll move on to our next question. We'll go to in-studio panelist Greg DeRocher with the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Greg.
Every one of your platforms talk about the economy and jobs first. That is the priority that everyone has identified as the #1 issue in this election. The Ontario government has announced it will launch a new provincial pension plan, the ORPP. A recent meeting with the minister responsible occurred at our office in a roundtable where business leaders from a one-person operation to the very largest in our community were there. This was unanimously rejected. That's 100%. A recent study, 90% of businesses in Ontario say they have no choice but to take this out of payroll costs, meaning salary cuts or layoffs. Complain as you might that business is not being cooperative, this is what will happen because we all know now is not the time to add costs to business. While this is a provincial jurisdiction, the federal government plays an important role in the introduction and administration of this type of program. Do you or your party support or oppose this new provincial plan, and why?
Thank you, Greg, for that question. We go to Michele.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that there wasn't discussion with the federal government and the provinces. The provinces certainly invited the federal government to the table. So the provinces stepped in, and Ontario came up with the best solution they could in the circumstances. A little bit of a salvage job. The Canada Pension Plan is an effective plan. It's been in place for 70 years. It would be the way to go about making changes. I do also want to correct and say that the single most important issue in this election is the environment. If we don't have a healthy environment, we won't have health and we won't have business. So it hasn't been talked about nearly enough, but it's very, very important to look after the environment, and that wasn't your question, but I did want to clarify that point. So the RRSPs are not an efficient way in terms of the cost to the tax system relative to the benefits.
Thank you, Michele, and we'll go to Gary.
Well, thank you. We absolutely disagree with mandatory contributions, particularly right now. People are having trouble making ends meet. We hear that all the time. People cannot afford an additional $1,000 mandatorily taken out of their paychecks, or $2,000 per worker out of a business. This is the reason that businesses move to other jurisdictions. We believe in a voluntary plan. That's why we brought forward the tax-free savings account, where over 2.7 million seniors are now using it. There is options with RRSPs and RIFs and RESPs. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have the money, they're going to take it anyway. We believe that when you have the money, it's your money, you can voluntarily save it for the future. Thank you, Gary. And Bryan?
Well, this is a really big issue, and with my involvement in the community in Cambridge, I've had an opportunity to speak with a number of the different social groups that have been warning that there is a tidal wave of an issue coming in the form of folks that simply have not, do not have the ability to retire and be able to afford to retire. We know that the economic downturn in 2008, which the Conservative government at the time said would never happen, caused a number of people in our community, thousands, if not tens of thousands, to lose their job and burn through their retirement savings. This is an issue that the Premier of Ontario has addressed front and center. This is not the first option. The first option was to support CPP, increase CPP. That was asked and told no. The second, of course, was to support the pension, saving hundreds of millions of dollars. That was told no as well. Thank you, Bryan. Manuel?
Well, we do support pensions for all, so that everyone can live a dignified life after the working period is over. This plan by the provincial government, however, is very suspicious, because it's a means for the provincial government to create a huge funding pool which can then be at its disposal. So we don't support that plan.
Thank you, Manuel. And Bobbi?
We, of course, support public pensions. But in fact, during the provincial campaign, Andrea Horvath didn't talk about the provincial pension plan, because we were hoping, we knew that we'd be having a federal election. We knew things weren't happening on the federal front, and so we were cautiously waiting until we had a federal election, get in an NDP government, and of course strengthen and store and restore our CPP. So in terms of the Ontario piece, I think it sort of went ahead without proper consultation. When I hear people talk about the employee contributions as taxes, I sort of cringe, because I don't see that as tax. I think, and I agree with Bryan in that, and I know that obviously there are many, many people who are having great difficulty, working poor, seniors are amongst them, they have difficulty, they're not ready to retire. So having extra money in a pension, even though you have to pay for it along the way, is hopefully still a good option.
Thank you, Bobbi. And Lee?
So clearly the biggest issue here is that the current federal government and the provincial government can't get along for some reason. It seems to be a little bit immature at times, and we've all seen it in the media. And I think we really need to get past that and actually focus on the issues here. The issue of the Ontario pension, it does worry me a little bit because you're adding a cost to corporations that in the end may decide to actually leave our jurisdiction and go somewhere else because it actually is cheaper, and not only that, they may actually have more incentives for going to those places. So, and Gary brought up a good point, saying that people are having a hard time making ends meet, and part of that reason is that household debt is up 20% in the last 10 years, and personal income is only up about 1%. So not only do we have to focus on the pension issue, but we also have to focus on increasing wages for workers.
And thank you, Lee. Candidates, our next question is going to come from Twitter. So again, to the big screen, this is from Nathan, who asked the question, what is your position on proportional representation? And this question first to Gary. Gary.
Well, I believe that we deserve a robust debate on all of these variations of the current system that we do have. What I have seen in Ottawa in committee, where some of these issues have already been discussed, other countries that have these systems actually want our system. So before we just go ahead and make a change, I think we need to have a very good conversation around it, and I'm not afraid of any debate at any time.
Thank you, Gary. Bryan?
I was very proud of our leader, Justin Trudeau, when he very early on in this campaign came out with the statement that this, if elected, this will be the last time in this country that we have this style of election, first past the post. He is committed to putting a team of people together, all-party team of people together, to determine what is going to be best for this country and what will, we need to start to rebuild the democracy in this country. And it has been under attack for the last decade. A number of things, one of the things that I am incredibly excited to get working on is repealing C-24, which creates a two-tier citizenship in this country, as well as the Fair Elections Act, which in fact has stripped 1.46 million expatriates' right to vote in this election.
Thank you, Bryan. Manuel?
Well, the political process is indeed in need of renewal. The biggest obstacle is that the political parties have a hold on power, and their support does not come from their membership, their financial support, it comes from the state. So our position is that the process and not the parties should be funded. For example, in the elections, the process should be funded, and the election expenses, currently the state subsidizes the election expenses of the major parties, and as well they get a subsidy for every vote that they get. So this is one of the reasons, one of the sources of the problem.
Thank you very much. Bobbi?
Yes, we definitely are in great need of electoral reform. Tom Mulcair came out right at the beginning and said, yes, we definitely need proportional representation, and our preferred model is mixed member representation. I want to commend Fair Vote for all the work that they've done on this to help us ensure that we get a new system to make every vote count. And absolutely, this will be the last election, hopefully, where it's first past the post.
Thank you very much, Bobbi. Lee?
So proportional representation is something that I do believe in. But to make such a fundamental change to our democratic process, I think that all Canadians' voices should be heard. And I think it's something that should actually be put to a type of referendum. I also think that all parties, this transcends party lines again, and everybody should sit down and have a fair debate about this, actually talk about the issue about proportional representation as opposed to the other option, and come to a common consensus.
Thank you, Lee. And Michele?
There's actually a groundswell of support in Canada. If you watch, there are election signs and there are people going door to door. If you see purple, it's not one of the parties. It's about proportional representation, social media campaign. So the very, very, very strong feeling in Canada that this way of voting is not meeting the needs of the people of Canada, and it's not reflecting how they want their government to be formed. First past the post goes back to the 12th century. Canada is one of the few democracies that still uses this system. It's outdated. It needs to be replaced, and it also contributes more to the people who are elected tend to have more regional very, very strong regional biases. So you end up having more collegiality and more debate if you have the proportionate representation. Needs to be some discussion, evidence-based decision-making on it, and good design.
Thank you, Michelle. We'll go to in-studio panelist Arlene Dowell for our next question. Arlene.
A report was recently issued stating women who wanted access to abortion in this country were facing too much red tape, making the procedure difficult to have. Women in rural areas facing even more challenges. How would you go about increasing accessibility to this procedure, or is it even a priority?
Thank you, Arlene. We'll start with Bryan.
This is a good question, and in terms of the federal government's commitment, Justin Trudeau's commitment, he has made it incredibly clear right from the very beginning that the women's right to choose is absolutely a cornerstone liberal value. We will continue to protect the women's right to choose, along with focusing on developing gender equity in this country. The fact that women are continue to be paid less than a man is another example, and we absolutely have to focus on bringing that issue to the forefront.
Thank you, Bryan. Manuel?
Well, this is part of healthcare, and we stand for full funding of the needs of the healthcare system, and for the healthcare facilities to be evenly accessible all across the country.
Thank you. Bobbi?
Really good question. I appreciate it. And it gets to the urban-rural. I'm learning a lot about the rural areas because now our riding, of course, it always has taken in North Dumfries, but it now takes in a bit of South Dumfries, and I've been meeting with some of the rural people lately. So we want to make sure that we have equal access to care in the rural areas, and NDP government will do that. We are putting a lot of money into healthcare. We're hiring extra doctors, nurses, new clinics, and certainly women's health and a woman's right to an abortion and to get that service is all part of that. So it is a top priority. I mean, it's an important issue. As with the Liberals, we definitely, one of our cornerstones is, of course, a woman's right to choose.
Thank you, Bobbi. Lee?
So no matter what the services that's being provided by the government, I think it should be fully accessible no matter where you live, no matter of your economic situation. And it's important for us to understand that no matter what side of the abortion issue you're on, if we're providing a service, and it has to be provided equally across the board. So not to give my personal opinion on it, but I believe that if you're going to give those services, it has to be fair across the board.
Thank you. Lee? Michelle?
Yes, it's we've already made decisions in this country with respect to safe and legal abortion, and that those rights need to be preserved. This highlights the situation for women in Canada, the lack of equality, and it also highlights the challenges with the healthcare system. There needs to be collaboration between the federal and the provincial government. There needs to be money invested in the healthcare system because a lot of what is happening is systemic. It's related to attitudes towards women, and it's also related to the funding of the healthcare system and a lack of will to make things work in a way that is fair and equitable and maximizes the health of Canadians.
Thank you, Michelle. And Gary?
On the issue of health care, it absolutely makes perfect sense that all Canadians deserve the same quality of health care regardless of where they live. And since we formed government, unlike the previous Liberal government who cut health care transfers to the province to balance the budget, we've actually increased health care transfers by some 70% and have also balanced the budget. On the issue of abortion, my position has not changed in all the time I've been in politics. Based on my religious background, I am pro-life.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Is that all the time we have for questions? Okay. All right. So we'll go to our closing statements now, candidates. Otherwise, we'll be over time. So just a reminder, 60 seconds for closing statements. We'll start in reverse order with Michelle. Michelle.
I encourage people to vote for me, to vote Green. The Green Party is in favor of electoral reform and it is the only party where the votes are not whipped. My primary obligation will always be to the constituents. The second question the Green Party asks is it good for all of Canada? Not middle-class Canadians, not blue-collar Canadians, not some Canadians, all Canadians. We need to look after all of Canada. We need a big picture. The Green Party offers that. It's way more than just an environmental party. It's a party that looks at electoral reform, looks at discourse, evidence-based. We need to do more measuring. We need to have more science. We need to make careful, well-thought-out decisions that are collaborative across all levels of government and all parties. Green Party will do that.
Thank you very much, Michele. Lee?
My goal, if elected, is to work with all parties and to support the plans and policies that best serve the people of Cambridge. I encourage you all to become engaged, talk to your peers, your neighbors, and your family. This election is not about today or tomorrow. It's about your future and your children's future. There are certain groups that are strategically supporting other candidates, essentially splitting the vote. On October 19th, you will have an opportunity to rally your votes together by putting those votes behind an independent candidate that will actually work for you in Ottawa. No party scripts, no party lines, just true representation. I'll leave you with this. A young lady I met named Erin Griffin said this to me, and it rings true. You may think that your vote doesn't change anything, but not voting changes nothing. Together we can make Canada great again. I'm Lee Sperduti, and I look forward to working for you.
Lee, thank you very much. Bobbi, please.
Thank you. From my work experience and my life experience, I know a lot about getting the best out of people, community collaboration, and small business. I grew up in Niagara Falls, where my dad was the local corner grocer. People came to him with their stories, and it was there that I first learned about the importance of community. I have spent most of my working years in the service of others and am a very proud wife, mother, and grandmother. When Jack Layton died, it was very hard on everyone, and we mourned his loss. It was only when we brought in the leadership contenders to Cambridge that our healing began. When we met Tom Mulcair, we were instantly taken with his intellect, his strength, and warmth. Tom is an excellent leader and has a very strong cabinet in waiting right next to him. With your help, we can defeat Stephen Harper. We can carry on the legacy of Jack Layton and elect Tom Mulcair as our next Prime Minister. We can replace anger with love, fear with hope, and despair with optimism. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobbi. Manuel?
In this election, the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada is appealing to the working people and youth of Ontario to make a clear statement that they oppose the neoliberal anti-social offensive and that they want a new direction for the economy without nation-wrecking and privatization of health care and education, an economy that serves the working people with jobs, manufacturing, pensions, care for children, seniors, veterans, and those in need. Such a statement can be made if we defeat the Harper government. Also in Ontario, it's our duty to defeat the Liberals, who we have seen time and time again stand for the same neoliberal agenda as Harper. To cast an informed vote in this election, we encourage everyone to read Renewal Update, our online daily newspaper, at mlpc.ca. It contains important information and discussion on political affairs and the work for people's empowerment nationwide, and provides a space.
Thank you very much, Manuel. And Bryan, please.
Thank you very much. I'm running because we deserve an honest, responsible, and caring government once more. You've got a choice to make. We've had a Conservative government that has brought us a lost decade. Another choice is the NDP, which is committed to balancing the budget at any cost with expensive, unplanned promises and won't make an investment in Canada now. The only choice for real change is the Liberal Party. We have a better plan to invest in Canada, a plan to raise taxes on the top 1% so that we can lower taxes for the middle class, a plan to get Canadians back to work in good-paying jobs. You have an important job. Casting your vote on October 19th will set our course for the next 4 years. I'm here asking for your vote because I understand the needs of our community. I know how to get things done, and I won't settle for less than we deserve. If you want change, I need your vote on October 19th. Thank you.
And thank you, Bryan. And Gary, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my opponents are planning on spending over $130 billion in the next 4 years. They say Ottawa needs more money. They think they can spend their way to prosperity. So did Greece. All of this money, ladies and gentlemen, will have to be paid back, and you are the ones that will have to pay it back. Raising taxes right now will hurt every single one of us. Seniors, students, farmers, families, even children, businesses will cut jobs. Some have threatened to close. I'm the only candidate with a record of keeping your money in your pockets and getting money from Ottawa, not the other way around. And I want to keep doing that. So on October 19th, please vote for Gary Goodyear. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And candidates, thank you for your time tonight. That is all the time we have. Once again, the candidates for Cambridge, Gary Goodyear with the Conservative Party, Bryan May with the Liberal Party, Manuel Cueto with the Marxist Leninist Party, Bobbi Stewart with the NDP, Sperduti, Independent, and Michele Brantiff with the Green Party. At this time, I'd also like to thank our in-studio panelists for joining us tonight and for their great questions. We're getting some round of applause from the candidates. Greg DeRocher with the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Apparently, art let you finally come in, right? Yeah. Exactly. And Arlene Dowell with 570 News. And if you're thinking to yourself, where is my ridings debate? It's up on YouTube. We've actually made a YouTube channel so you can check them out, so check that out. Thank you for watching tonight. Thank you to all the candidates again. Please remember to vote on October the 19th, and we have the results show here on Rogers TV as well. Good night.